Just before I talk about, as I said, specifically a couple of our initiatives in the education space, we are looking at creativity and innovation and how we can build that from an early age right through to what happens at second level, what happens at third level, and then taking it into the whole area of CPD, continuous professional development. I've looked at it in the context of the craft industry, but also in maybe the bigger context of creative industries, which is craft being one of those industries. Before I start, I just wanted to say a few general words about innovation and the smart economy, because there's a huge amount of debate about it at the moment. And I was at an event in Dublin which was quite interesting last month, which was, I suppose, a number of our senior policy makers talking about what's smart about the smart economy and what do we mean by innovation. And some interesting statistics from that event included, between 1999 and 2003, our growth, 40% of our growth came from productivity. However, between 2003 and 2007, that dropped down to 15%. So the crux of that was, what is the smart economy? It's about productivity, because our productivity levels had shot right down, and I think maybe we're all seeing that today. So one of the suggested, I suppose, areas that we can look at in order to increase productivity is going to be innovation. So how can we do that? And there was a lot of talk about more connected systems, and I think we've all heard talk of that in the public sector. Different systems, and I mean, Vera, in the department, I know that there is a whole public policy move towards interdepartmental policy initiatives, and we're delighted to hear that, because sometimes it can be really challenging for certain sectors, including craft, to be siloed under a particular department. They talked about the need to focus, how do you develop an economy that is innovation driven? And I think we hear a lot of talk about innovation in technology and science, and R&D has been focused very much in that area and coming up with new things, inventing things. But a number of people spoke about innovation in process, and that's something that we have been extraordinarily successful at in Ireland. And they talked about Ryanair as being a really super example of that. Love them or hate them, they have been really, really innovative. They deliver the same service as everybody else, getting people from A to B, but they have become extraordinarily smart about that. They talked about innovation in an Irish context, looking at Selling Ireland Inc. So what are we selling? And I was really delighted to hear that we talked about Selling Ireland Inc. in terms of its cultural and heritage value. And certainly for the craft industry, that's hugely important to us. And finally, talked about the role of arts and humanities. This shift away from maybe putting all our eggs in one basket in terms of science and technology research, and looking at the opportunities that may be available to us in other areas. So that was just a general few words from, as I said, something I was at last week. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. I just want to click on, I don't know where the clicker is here. Can I get rid of this? Just go to this. Excellent. Okay. So, very briefly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about education and the creative industries. I'm going to talk about craft as a creative industry, the role of education and training, and I know it's been mentioned a number of times today, and looking at developing creative talent and talking to you about one or two initiatives that we have in that area. So, I won't spend a long time talking about this. You've all heard Pauline talk about obviously the WDC's report, but also I just pulled out the Smart Economy document, which did talk about building our ideas economy. It does talk about the importance of creativity and innovation and creating the innovation island. So although I know, Pauline, you said that there wasn't a national policy in this area, I think that we can deduce from a number of initiatives and events that are taking place that it is something that the government have on their agenda, and I hope will be progressing. I just wanted to briefly mention Farmly and the Global Irish Economic Forum in Dublin, which did recognise that building Ireland's smart economy is the right strategy, and also the need to strengthen our education system to foster creativity. The other areas that they felt were very important was the recognition of the importance of culture and having a strong cultural identity. And I think it was Minister Cullen, if I remember rightly, who suggested that Ireland needs to be set up as a global centre for artistic and creative education, innovation and technology. And they talked about the whole concept of cultural innovation. And one of the interesting things, an anecdote I heard from that meeting was that after the initial keynote addresses, and this was an event where all of the most wonderful minds that we have available to us, both in Ireland and outside our diaspora, were going to give us a couple of suggestions in terms of how we can economically renew as a nation. And apparently there was a couple of different options in terms of breakout groups, and one of them was culture. And Dermot Desmond headed for that, and half the congregation headed with him. So I thought that was fantastic and really positive for us. Okay, and then the DKM report that Vera mentioned already, in terms of putting some numbers behind this, and I know while policy isn't always about economic backup, they do listen to numbers, and these are quite important. So they looked at the value add of cultural creative sectors and said that they would put that as 11.8 billion or 7.6% of our total GNP. And as Vera has said, employment of 170,000 or 8.7%, which is significant. So we're representing a significant part of Irish industry. The European Commission have ranked Ireland 13th, which I think is reasonably good, out of 29 European countries in turnover in the creative industry sector. So we do have a track record, and you know, I think we know from today there's a lot happening in the area. And the sector is recognised as one of the fastest growing, representing 7% of global GDP and growing at an annual rate of 10%. And given the really challenging economic times we're in at the moment, a growth rate of 10% is something that I think we should really look positively towards. Okay, so education and the creative industries. Recognised as globally one of the fastest growing sectors, as I've said, we're looking at a growth rate of 10% year on year, which is very positive. There have been a number of European and national policy initiatives that are supporting the potential of creative industries. And I think it's an important point to say that it's not just an economic contributor. It has the potential to contribute at a broader level in terms of local and regional development. And we certainly would see that in the craft industry in terms of the size of companies, and I think that's shown in the WDC report. There's a lot of craft industries that are companies that are micro and sole enterprises. So the size of the companies is very, very small, and they do play a huge role in terms of regional and local and regional development. And finally, wider educational, cultural and social benefits to be gained. I think we've had a number of examples today given by a number of different speakers, so I'm not going to reiterate any of those. Okay, so I just put up a couple of questions there, and I think some of the people in the audience have asked some of these questions. I don't think that we have all of the answers as yet, but I think it's really, really important that we're talking about these issues. And maybe bringing them to the attention of the powers that be and people who actually make decisions around these areas. So we talked about our national curriculum, and the example that I'm going to talk about in terms of developing creativity and innovation is at primary level, where there are lots and lots of really, really positive things happening. And it does seem that our system at the moment, in terms of second level education, doesn't necessarily support somebody looking to develop an alternative type of career. Also the question about our third level institutions, are they providing the types of undergraduate programs required by the creative industries? There's lots of examples of what you're doing here in Galway and around the country, but are they closely enough connected into the creative industries to look at what kind of people will they need in 5 to 10 years' time, so that we will have the skills and the competences required? And also, certainly this is very relevant in our area, are we providing the type of ongoing continued professional development required to develop our creative talent? So if we develop people in this area, have our creative industries employing skilled and competent people, they then require ongoing professional development in order to keep us on top of what is best national and international practice. Okay, very briefly, craft as a creative industry, and just a couple of statistics there. Our last survey showed that it was valued at 122 million, employing up to 5,000 people nationally. We're the national organisation responsible for the development of the industry, and we actually have an enterprise remit, as opposed to, we don't sit under the Department of Arts, Sports and Tourism, which some people, you might imagine that we would do. We sit under Enterprise Ireland, and so we have a strong, as I said, economic remit. We do have a culture and heritage objectives as well in preserving our craft skills, but at this moment in time, and particularly in the current economy, we're looking at craft enterprise, developing the next generation of makers, and how can we assist people who are actually in the industry at the moment. And we work both at a national and a regional level then, supporting individuals and networks of craftspeople. Okay, so in terms of our role, and the organisation has gone through some change in the last year. It has gone from 14 to 23 people, which is quite a sizable difference in the last 12 months or so. There is a new focus, I would say, a renewed focus from a strategic viewpoint on education and training. So what we're doing is we're looking at, okay, what's happening at an early age. So this is pre-primary and primary, looking at innovation and creativity. We're looking at our national curriculum. We're talking to people like the Department of Education and people like NCCA, people who make decisions about what subjects our young people are studying while they're in school. One of the areas that we have to look at, or that we look at, and that we're trying to ensure that people working in the industry have access to training. There hasn't been a huge number of opportunities for people working in craft in many of the disciplines to access, be it master classes, be it continuous type training. And as I said, and I think I've said a lot of those points, we're looking to promote craft as a career. That's what's in second level. There isn't an obligation for people to take a type of creative type subject, so it's very, very difficult. We have them at primary level. There's a huge fall off at second level, and then there are third level degree programs to enable people to develop as makers. But I suppose part of our role is looking at how do we put out the message that there are viable careers in craft and that it is an interesting industry to work in. We're working with various different third level colleges to look at that. Okay, we produced a report this year. We published it in July of this year, called Creative Pathways, which is looking at craft education and training in Ireland. It looks at education and training in a general context and specific to the craft industry. It's based on research that was conducted over the last year or so into who are the stakeholders, who are the providers, where are the gaps, what are the big issues. There hasn't really ever been a comprehensive piece of research done on craft education and training in Ireland to date. So it was the first time that this was looked at a national level. So we looked at everything from primary, second, third, further education, as well as continued professional development opportunities. So the report is available on our website at ccoi.ie for anybody who wants to download that. Some of the key points that are mentioned is more craft in our curriculum, because we see it as an opportunity to expose kids to creative practice. And so we're looking for, it's on our curriculum at primary level, it disappears at second level, and then, as I said, we have a number of different third level providers who do offer craft related degree courses. One point that came across very, very strongly from the report was the amount of support and training that teachers need. So teachers don't feel comfortable. We talk about developing creativity and innovation, and even at primary level, we had up to 30% of teachers surveyed saying that they're not comfortable with creative process and making things with kids. And if the teacher's not comfortable, that's obviously going to be passed on to the children and so on. So that's a really big issue for us. So we're working with, we have one or two initiatives with national teacher education centres and so on, which is looking at how can we get teachers more comfortable with actually promoting these kind of practices. In our area, we're a very small organisation, but we have to work with other institutions and organisations, so partnerships and alliances are really critical. And policy and lobbying for craft as a creative industry, and craft as a career is a really, really important part of our job at this moment in time. And Pauline mentioned in the WDC report the need for business skills training and incubation supports. Business skills training, a lot of our third level providers provide excellent degree and postgraduate programs specific to craft and art, but there's not a huge amount of business type subjects, be it marketing, finance and so on, to be found in many of them. So unfortunately we have graduates who come out having pursued these studies for a number of years, but they're lacking a lot of the practical know-how in terms of how to set up as a business, and a huge number of them fall off after completing a four-year degree. So that's a big issue for us. The issue of incubation is really, really important as well. in terms of the type of studio facilities that graduates need, because they cost quite a lot of money. But I was delighted to hear there's a new initiative in Galway called Groundworks, which is a number of graduates coming together with some help from some lecturers from the MIT who are helping them look for space and just creating, I suppose, what we would call a creative cluster. Okay, role of craft education then, I've talked about at primary level, which we take, I suppose, a whole system approach to developing creativity and innovation in craft. So at primary level, we have a number of different initiatives. I'm going to give you an example of one at the end of the presentation. We have educational outreach where we go and we bring kids to be at our gallery in Kilkenny and get them interacting. The National Museum are excellent at doing this. If any of you have ever been there in Dublin, getting kids to interact with the medium itself is a super way of just getting them involved. At second level, there's a number of different things that we do. We participate at events, national events, but one of the key things we do is partnerships, working with people like the Institute of Guidance Counsellors, who obviously are in a position to influence career choices and so on for kids. And then at third level, we've got a very big national award system where we're looking at the next generation of makers, which is a huge issue for us. The pipeline is not big enough. A lot of people working in the industry at the moment are age-wise somewhere between 40 and 60. We don't have enough people in their early 20s into their 30s actually entering the industry. So we're looking to open up as many opportunities as we can to make that happen. And then we partner with, to date it's been largely NCAD, who do produce probably the biggest number of craft graduates, where we work on scholarship programs with them, Fulbright being one of them, looking at integrating, providing CPD for makers, people in the industry, matching them with students, fourth level students, from a professional practice point of view. So that's the first time we're doing that, and it's going really well. Okay, just to finish up on the training area, we're looking at enterprise development, which is, I've mentioned already, helping craft enterprise. We run things like workshops, seminars, and we do mentoring and so on, a lot of individual specific one-on-one type support. And the kind of issues the report highlighted were, as I've said already, business, finance and marketing skills and the lack of them, and the need for enterprise to be able to access that. Access to training and incubation, and funding is a huge issue for ongoing training. Okay, I'm going to finish up, which is just giving you a very small example of one of our initiatives where we're looking to promote creative practice, and we're doing it at primary level. It's something that's been running since 2004, and it's being evaluated at the moment, just in terms of where we're going to take it next, because we don't have the resources to roll out this huge national initiative or national program. So we're looking at where we're taking it next. But this is just to give you a sense and a flavour of the kind of things that we do. So it's a craft-based, okay, educational program supporting the visual arts curriculum. So there are subjects that kids do at primary level, and the program has been designed to support those and to support the learning behind those. And it's focused on primary school level, as I said. So what we're looking to do, heighten the awareness of craft so that kids understand what it is. As I said, support the curriculum, develop innovation and creativity, just expose them to the possibilities that they have. And collaborative practice has been an interesting one. We've had craftspeople, makers, working with teachers over long periods of time, which has been a huge learning experience. And so the key kind of things that we had, so we had a national call out to craftspeople, to makers, to see who might be interested in getting involved. One thing to keep in mind is that an awful lot of craftspeople supplement their income through teaching, okay? It's a key area because there are very few people who are able to make a living out of just making, unfortunately. So teaching is a key component, and this was an opportunity to get people involved and get more people interested. There was quite a bit of, I suppose, discussion around what was going to be required. It went over a period of weeks, but just looking at what the learning outcomes needed to be from a teaching point of view, but also from a creative practice, how much expression was going to be allowed, and so on. And also, yeah, what kind of support the kids would need. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring any of them because they would be able to tell you a much better and more exciting story than me. But So total numbers so far. So we've trained, and I suppose this is part of continued professional development for makers. We've put them through a teaching training program because many of them obviously are specialists in their craft but wouldn't necessarily have a teaching experience. 77 schools and over 2,000 students so far. And the visuals that you see on the right-hand side are some of the objects that the kids came up with. They're glass feet, obviously, but just all the different schools would have been involved. We would have paired makers who had different craft discipline backgrounds with different schools. So we had textile people, we had ceramicists, we had felt makers, and so on. So it was very, very broad. Kind of benefits that we've seen over the last couple of years. Craftspeople, as I said, it's given them training around planning and implementing what's called a residency program in a school. And it's also helped some of them revisit their own creative processes. They found that working with kids has opened their mind to what they might do differently, so they've actually learned a huge amount, which I think is fabulous. For the teachers in the schools, first of all, the teachers, it's given them really practical help with the visual arts curriculum, which they have to do, which is part of the day job. It's helped them with their creative skills. As I said, a lot of them, up to 30% of them in our report, said that they weren't terribly comfortable with making. It has raised expectations in the school. There's been a huge level of excitement in lots of the different schools that have been involved in it. And offered opportunities from a pedagogical viewpoint. One of the interesting things for me certainly was the opportunities for integrated learning. There were opportunities to use this project to incorporate it in with what the kids were doing in maths, English, geography, and so on. So that opportunity for integrating the learning process is something that we're looking to explore. For the students, working with craftspeople, actually even meeting a craftsperson was a great opportunity for some of the kids. They told me they really enjoyed that. Developing new skills, they got to use specialised tools, under supervision obviously, and also raised expectations of their ability. So if you're not familiar with doing something, we found this with kids, very, very small kids, they're afraid of it, so just this whole project offered them, in a very safe kind of an environment, an opportunity to be creative and to do something that they could stand back and be proud of. So that is, I think this is my last one. Okay, so and then just in summary, I just thought I'd mention just one or two of the things that we do at a national level, and these are our third level initiatives. Which I've mentioned, Future Maker Awards, which is really looking at, and it is looking at awarding excellence also among our next generation of makers. Partnerships, looking at professional practice. And then finally, looking at professional development. We're also involved in a number of EU projects where we work with. There's some really, really fabulous examples from an education viewpoint of what they do in this field in Scandinavia, and working with a couple of Scandinavian partners in that area. So that's pretty much it, just to give you an example of what we do. Thank you.